We're gonna be live, and we're live.
Ah, there it is. Okay, it says 2 seconds, 3, 4. Okay, now we've been live. Here we are. Welcome everyone to the Magick Hour with Anna Stone and Stephanie Siren. And tonight we have a special guest, Lori Abel, who is a licensed massage therapist, but she is also practices shamanism. She is a shaman. And so Lori's going to open up the space with a prayer first. And so great to have you, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
So this is a part of my daily practice in the morning. I use just a regular tobacco pouch, and I put the tobacco in my fingers like this, and then I put it in one of my palms, and then I seal it, and I do a gratitude prayer in the morning. So I usually do, giving thanks for the day, giving thanks in advance for all the people that will be helping me. I thank everybody from the front desk that, because I work doing massage in the industry. So I thank my clients in advance, giving thanks for Mother Earth, giving thanks for Father Sky. Thank you to myself, for my integrity, and for my healer self for being there for others, caring for others. And what I want to do tonight is I want to do a prayer for everyone here tonight who is tuning in. So thank you, Creator, for bringing all of these women together for this podcast tonight. Thank you for all the blessings and all the healing energy that these shows are bringing to everyone, and making community, allowing people to go deeper into their own selves and to find their true nature, expanding their consciousness on the planet at this time. And I want to give thanks to the divine feminines who are coming together in unity and forgiveness and in new connections to strengthen the potency of the divine feminine on the planet, because truth is needed for all of the healing that is coming up for this ascension. Amen. Aho Ashe Matakiwasin.
So it is. Lovely.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And gratitude is so important. Is gratitude important in shamanism, Lori?
Yes.
Okay. What is the thought process there? And also, hi everybody! Yay! I see you all.
Yeah, we see you guys.
What is, like? Let's talk about the definition of a shaman for a second for people who don't know. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I just want to share a little bit more of an intro to that.
Please do.
In terms of my lens and how I'm drawn to it. So you might know that I have another name that I go by. It's Serpentbird, and it was a name that I chose because I was started out as an artist and a poet. And before I was a healer, I didn't really know about my past lives. I didn't know about the Akashic Records. But I kept having this really strong pulse to research shamanism. And when I looked it up on Wikipedia, I saw that there's something called the world tree. So all shamans have a kind of common story around what they call a tree, or the tree of life. And they also call it the axis mundi, and that you'll also see the axis mundi in yoga. I actually just took a 200-hour training from a guy who is very vetted in yoga and has some amazing teachers as well. And he taught us about the axis mundi. So it's not just shamanism, it's also in the yogic path. So the tree of life is our body. It's actually the third tree in the bones in the body. And so a shaman, what a shaman does is they use their body as a tree, as a vessel to travel. And you either are traveling up into many, many worlds, universe, stars, systems, all over the place, because the soul can leave the body and travel. But we also travel to the middle and the underworld. So sometimes when people have trauma, they get lost. A part of them gets shocked from like accident or running from a bear or whatever. It could seem insignificant at the time, but a piece of their soul gets fragmented and it shoots away. And so the shaman's job is, in my opinion, to be like their, I mean, nowadays it's all commercialized and I got to hire you for sessions and all this stuff. But the thing that's different about me is when I work with private clients, aside from my massaging people and spas, this person is my friend. And if they're not my friend tonight, I wore some special protection against ancestors, because you guys might have some out there in TV land, might have some crazy ancestors around that need some healing. But the shaman is able to identify very quickly what is going on with a person. And I can tell from doing massage for 9 years that I can meet with a person and within 15 minutes, I can tell you if they need a retrieval, tell you if they've had sexual trauma. I can read your tattoos and tell you what your past lives are. So I've really gone beyond barriers of just massaging, but massage is such a great way to start with what they call the muggles, or the people that are just kind of like in the norm and are afraid to go outside and, well, what is a light worker? What is a shaman? What is an indigenous person? And so my role as a massage therapist has been really amazing, because I've opened people as I'm massaging, so many other things that they were completely unaware of. And then, just like I said, in the basic terms, like in an ancient perspective of shamanism, I'd be living in the middle of the woods somewhere, and you would come find me and meet with me in my hut, and I would, heal you, ancestors, your soul parts, do soul retrieval, twigs and medicines and all of those things. But now in this urban age, you have to be very versatile, and you have to meet people where they're at. And it sounds really repetitive, but it's super true, because if you're dealing with an wounded inner child or someone who's had sexual trauma, you better be like their friend first.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that idea too, that you better be their friend first, because honestly, as a healer, I understand you in that respect, because a lot of my clients, I build a rapport with them when I heal them or before I heal them. Like, I come in the most loving way. And I think that's the most important thing, is to build a rapport, because you're journeying in other worlds together. There needs to be trust there, right? At the soul level, because of this journey. Soul retrieval. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was really interesting, because I would meet with other psychics through my healing journey to figure out who I was. And they said, you've done soul retrieval before, so all you have to do is remember. And I was like, wow, that's easier said than done. And so I learned, I actually think I learned through a modality called cranial sacral therapy, which was invented by John Upledger, and it's part of the massage world. So cranial sacral therapy, what it does is it balances the rhythms of the spine and all 7 rhythms of the spine. And you're doing some basic holds at the cranium, the back of the head, and at the sacrum, where all the fluid flows. And during those times of holding people in sacred positions, that's when I find, oh, something's coming up. They're moving and twitching, and there's something missing. And you can kind of tell, like, someone's trauma and part of their soul has kind of exited the body. And so in massage rooms, I've done tons of sessions that should have been really expensive sessions for was getting paid there because these people needed soul retrieval. And so
Oops, we're having some technical difficulties. Oh, we might have lost Lori. She'll come back.
I can see her.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry. I had a moment where I had lost you a little bit.
Okay, I was myself the whole time. So
okay.
yeah, so basically it's all it comes down to is identifying that the person had a trauma, having a conversation about what might have happened. You could say, I see, like, let's say in the case of sexual trauma, you know, their ankles are turning inward, their feet are turning inward. I see this a lot. I might, you know, in a certain settings where it's appropriate, I'll with them and say, do you want to go back to when you were 7 and something might have happened to you? And do you remember that? And then you, if they have, you know, any cognition of something, because sometimes they just don't, they left their body. And so, you know, like I said, in a certain setting, then I would pray for the person and I would call in certain angelic beings that I feel like I'll usually get an intuitive hit, like I'm working with Archangel Michael or I'm working with Elijah is usually a good angels for retreat, and they can kind of serve as a branch of me, and they can go throughout the universe and look for the parts. I'll hear like this person has 3 parts missing. You know, it could be an accident happen. Where it gets complicated is sometimes a grandmother holding one of the parts, and then you have to have a conversation with her and see if she needs something. Sometimes it can take an extra 30 minutes to an hour just to work with that one piece because it's attached to a story with the grandmother, and whole healing exchange between their ancestor and the body and the person that's on the table.
I have amazing. This is crazy because it means that, like, what you're saying is in line with polyvagal theory and the idea that we store trauma in our nervous system, right? And that the dissociation that we experience in younger life to protect us from what's happening during traumatic events. I mean, that's a known thing, like, you know, and that it does splinter off parts of our soul, like, and leaves it behind. I was not aware. I've never heard of that about the ancestor possibly taking it, and I'm wondering, are you saying that they're like a deceased ancestor, like that's holding it? So that's, is it? I mean, why are they trying to transmute it themselves, or is it like a secret? You know, is it, what kind of vibe do you get off of that?
What I find a lot of times, I do a lot of barter with other advanced healers and work with Akashic records, and sometimes I'm working with someone who's already a really high level established healer, and so you have to do a lot of ancestral work with them. Like I had a lady, I won't say her name, but she's a really high level. She was a witch in a past life, and she was living in an inherited house, and one of her pieces was being kept by the grandmother, and we had to have this whole conversation with the grandmother. I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, but that person needed a lot of healing, so you had to spend a lot of time with them because it was affecting how she was the healer was living in currently, and how she inherited it, and the patterns that she inherited as well.
Right. So that's like literally inherited. So that inherited trauma through our DNA is also at play here too, it sounds like, which is fascinating to me. That's truly interesting. I had never thought about that. I would think that an ancestor would be trying to protect, you know, and maybe with their, you know, flawed way of doing it for whatever reason, like they're trying to protect their you know, their current ancestors, you know, from the pain of it, so they're holding on to it. But likely, it sounds like they're probably traumatized themselves, so that they're just trying to like kind of take it in because they've already had that wound, right? And then And then there's people identify with those wounds very much. It becomes very much a part of our identity, you know, even though it's a negative thing. It's like, yeah, you know, we're traumatized, right? Like that's part of who we are. So I can imagine having to let go of that, right, could be a problem. Yeah, I can see that.
I'd like to ask also, since you brought up that it could be the grandmother and things like that. So this is what we would refer to as generational curses, right? Mm-hmm. Or also the sins of the father, right? In different reference in different religions. And so what I'm wondering is, could it also be because these families that have these generational curses, right? And you said she was a healer, usually also have these gifts, correct?
Yep.
And the reason, and we've talked about this actually previously on our show, we were talking about the initiations that myself and Anna went through, and our rough initiations, because we didn't have any kind of lineage to explain to us, you know, oh, this is what's happening to you. We didn't have elders. We didn't have anybody who could guide us, or medicine man or woman or anything like that, really. Our families were gifted, yes, but because of the timeline, right? Like our grandmothers and parents, like they lived in times where it was very suppressed. Like right. You don't talk about this. Mm-hmm. And so we were unable to have anything but a rough initiation. Right. So have you been through initiations, and have you been through rough and formal? And also, why do we have to go through shamanic initiations, Lori? These are all my questions for you.
Really quick, plethora of me. I see your questions and we're going to answer them in a minute. Okay. But you have some good questions. Sorry, Lori, go ahead.
So what was the first one again?
Okay. The first one was, I was flowing. Sorry. The first one was, did you go through a rough initiation and a formal initiation? Was it or was it both?
That's a many part question answer situation. Because like I said, from pretty young, I had this revelation that I was different from the people in my family, from people around me, kind of the starseed lone thing. And so my mom, she really sheltered me as a child. She's a Jewish mom, and she's trying to protect her person. But we've had a long past life history of her locking me in a basement and, like, you know, hiding me from the world. So this was kind of a thing I had to overcome as somebody overly protecting me for many lifetimes. And so from a teenager, when my dad bought me my first bicycle, my dad actually was getting away from my mom too. He was running marathons, triathlons, and he was getting away. I was like, I'm going to get away too. So I rode my bike a lot, and this kind of became a thing for me of developing a lot of toughness, a lot of strength, and like physical power, you know, like riding all day long sometimes, just like going to another town. And so I kept that going throughout my life. I realized if I didn't keep pushing myself and kind of self-initiating, that I wasn't going to grow, you know, because I did grow up in a home. I had like certain comforts, but on an emotional level, I had a lot of things I had to overcome with my upbringing. So I actually chose, like, my own soul. I was like, I have to choose to tell them I'm not going to follow Judaism. I had to choose to tell them I'm not going to be in this house. I'm going to get away, you know. So there's things like that. But now that I'm in the healing world, I'd say my biggest initiation was leaving my husband back in so it was 9 years ago. It was like somewhere 14, and I decided if I was going to start over, I was going to spiritual place. And I went to Sedona, Arizona to study massage, because actually my mom helped me go to massage school. it happened a really magical way and all these things. And I left my husband from Boston. I flew to Phoenix with 2 backpacks, and I had nothing else. I had no car, no cash. I knew I was going to school, and I was in Sedona for 3.5 years. And anyone who is called by the land of Sedona, I feel, is going through initiation. And it wasn't just picking Sedona, like my higher self was having this communication with her. And yeah, so those are some examples.
Yeah, those are definitely, that's definitely a rough initiation, starting, leaving, escaping, starting, going against the grain. The majority of people don't do that. The majority of people follow suit. And like, I know, so plethora of me, you had asked earlier about like generational trauma being in the DNA. That is actually a scientific fact. I mean, you can Google it. They've discovered that up to, at first it was 4 generations out, they say. So like if someone experienced the Holocaust, their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren would all inherit that collective trauma from the people that experienced the Holocaust. Now they're saying it's up to 6 generations out. And I've seen this play out myself with testing of animals in a lab I used to work for. The animals hadn't been tested on for 3 generations. If we walked by them in a lab coat, they would freak out, like go crazy. If we were in our street clothes, they were fine. And it was like, no one could figure it out. Like, why are they like this? And my the principal investigator I work for, he's like, they just know. That was his answer, is they just know. They can feel it.
They
so
do.
That's scientifically that's scientifically peer reviewed stance now, that we inherit trauma, and most people don't even know that that's a thing. So it can be very confusing as to why you have these traumatic, these responses that are exaggerated, right?
Well, like, okay, for instance, my family is refugees, right? And so we have a very big issue with people having anxiety and depression in our family. And we also have this thing called the sprinter gene, which go kind of hand in hand, actually. And it's because we had to run for our lives so many times. And so in our family, like, we'll have these moments of, for no reason, but it's actually in our DNA because we've had to run so much.
Right. And initiation is, so there's a couple different types.
Oh yeah, let me post that question because this is a good question, and we do cover what initiations are in another episode, but let's go over it as quickly as we can.
Right. So in an indigenous tribal situation, individuals picked from birth, and they are groomed for this experience that they are going to be given trauma on purpose by their elders, and held in this container of elders while they're being traumatized, so that they can be broken open, quote unquote, to experience the messages and understanding of the ancestral and astral realms, right? Here in the United States, especially in Western culture anyways, we don't have that. We never have had that. So we have things that happen in our lives that are highly traumatic, and not just the typical, everyone has trauma. All of us do, right? Everybody's been traumatized in some way, shape, or form. But the bigger ones are like when you're abandoned by a parent, or when you are, homeless with your family, or, big things that really stick with us for our entire life. These are things that change us.
I'd like to go further with that and say that it's a death rebirth where it changes fundamentally parts of our personality and our understanding of reality.
Yeah, you can't go backwards.
Right. It fundamentally changes your reality and your understanding of your reality. And it's a death and rebirth. And actually, sometimes they call this snake medicine as well. There are people that hold that energy in them. There's healers that do that for you. I'm personally one of them, where it just can activate that in a person if they're supposed to be experiencing that. And it's very potent, and it's necessary, because when there's this quote, I'm going to butcher it, but it's, you can't take it all with you. And so when you're going through an initiation, you're going to experience a lot of loss. Right. And the reason for this loss is because they can't come with you.
Right. See this next question here? Like this next question she's asking is, can you reverse any type of initiation? And I'm going to say, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
There's no one doing that ever.
It's if you have it, it's because that was your path. Like that's what you're supposed to be doing. Like it's you may not see it right away, and most of us don't in the beginning. We have no idea why. It's like we have that why me? This is unfair. Like kind of feeling about it. It is what it is. Like Laura, do you have anything that you want to say about that?
Yeah, so I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the ancestors, and Stephanie has been really kind to me and has done a lot of help when I've been called to initiations. So what I believe in my urban shamanic path is there's times where I'll be asked to take a test. So initiation is a test, and you can say yes to it or no to it. Now, I've had some come up in a very recent past where I felt like there wasn't a choice, and I'm going to give you exactly what happened. So and Stephanie remembers this, but I was coming back from California for a 6-month thing by the ocean, which is a whole other shamanic thing I was doing. And I came back to Colorado and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I was kind of stuck in a rut, was in my massage career, and I was getting these dream messages that if I didn't move my car, that I was going to get a parking ticket. And so I was like, what is happening? So I was like shocked awake at 144 in the morning. It's usually like a light worker number, some kind of significant 444 number. And I meditated and I just felt like these Tibetan guides were around me. And then soon after, I kind of figured some things out. I kept trying to contact Stephanie and we were blocked. We couldn't call each other. We couldn't message each other. It was like the ancestors were so powerful. They wanted me to have this lesson so bad that they were like, you meditate, you do your work, and until I got like some of the details sorted out, it turned out I needed to take a yoga for a 200-hour yoga program. And then when we talked, she confirmed, she's like, yeah, I've been in my making soup and there's these Tibetans and they weren't saying anything and now they're on the call like, hammering away.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's the thing is like a lot of times when we are going for something and there's these roadblocks that keep popping up, like how you guys experience not being able to contact each other or whatever. That's like because like there's a reason for it, right? And so there'll be like if it's something that you're supposed to do, that either be help for you or there's going to be a hindrance for you to go the other way,
Right.
And it will be something that'll be like literally you can't control it, like, and it seems very out of place and ridiculous, and you're just like, this is like out of a movie, like what the hell's going on? So these are very, they're not I don't think they're that common, but I think among people like that they're common, but more common. Like I definitely think so. Let's see.
There were shaman questions.
Yeah.
We're
We're definitely gonna post some. In fact, like this. Okay, so a plethora of me. I'd like to answer this one real quick first.
Yeah.
She says, because, well, if a healer is able to heal you, then what does that mean about the initial initiation? Well, here's the thing. I understand that, but this is twofold here, this answer, because it's a yes and, okay? Healers usually, we have trauma before words, usually. So we already come in with an initiation. But on the other side of it, we've always been able to heal too. It's not just you have to go through hell to be able to do it. It just makes us more able to understand the human and the human condition and everything, like the sicknesses that we get or the things that happen to us. It's so we can understand.
Right. You can't point out something in someone else if you don't possess it yourself.
Exactly. And for me, that's medical, but it doesn't mean it's always medical. When you hear healer, it can mean many different things. Okay. Mine just happens to be literally how that works. Like I literally put my hands on people and can heal the things that have happened to me. And that's why, it is that way. Now, I think that initial initiation is not what you think. Actually, some of our initiations that are bigger happen later in life, not in early life. The biggest ones are the ones where they're exit points that we don't take, or being past the normal number of exit points that we don't take, like living beyond reason, right? Like that's the best way to describe it. Living beyond karma, living beyond reason, totally against what scientifically should be possible, right?
Right.
So that's where we're at on that healer path. So I just wanted to answer that question with that. And then getting initiation sort of feels like being part of a gang. Maybe no.
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 You're by yourself. You're totally by yourself.
You're so by yourself.
And you mostly will be probably for your entire life, because you can't relate to other people the same way that other people relate to each other. It makes it impossible. It's very overwhelming a lot of the time to be close to other people. So you're alone. There's no gang. Yeah, not at all.
It says here, I feel as though having a strong belief in an initiation is what triggers its meaning, perhaps. No.
I know nothing about it at all.
Lori, what do you think about that?
I'm not even able to process that. I wanted to speak to the other part about the healer that heals you, and that's actually, in my opinion, incorrect. The healer cannot do the healing for anyone.
Right.
We're only there. They call in Native tradition, they call it the hollow bone or the axis. Right. So we actually get out of the way so we can retrieve information and give you clues as to how you scattered and kind of all over the place, and you can choose to accept to heal that day or not. And usually what happens when I work with clients is it's not like, you come book a massage with me and you could just get a massage. If somebody has a crisis, they have to contact me right when they're having a crisis, or else they're not going to believe that they need anything. So
okay.
When they're ready to decide that they want to heal.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, Lori. And I agree with you 100%, because we are not, when we say healers, what we mean is we facilitate your healing of yourself, not that we're doing it. We're the only person that can save you is you. You can be guided, that saying, you can guide a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's like that. It's we know it because we've lived it. So we can facilitate the process of hopefully getting you where you need to be so that you can accept those truths that you need to accept. But we can't do it for you. You have to then step in. So it has nothing to do with our belief at all about any of that. It has to do with your belief and your ability to heal yourself. Thanks for bringing that up, Lori, because it's like therapy. Therapist is not, when you go to a good therapist, they're not giving you advice. We're not allowed to give advice as therapists. We ask a therapist a question, should I break up with him? They are not going to tell you, for the most part, unless your life's in danger. They will not say, yeah, break up with him. They'll say, well, what do you think about that? Let's talk about, and they will ask you more and more leading questions to get you to hopefully see the right path for you. But you're not supposed to do it for them, because that person's not learning anything. They're learning that they can just, have problems that someone else will fix. And then at the end of the day, they're going to end up compounding their problems, So yeah, it's totally a lot. It's misleading, I guess. And then the term healer is a bit off, I guess. But it is right, and it's also not. If that makes sense. So hopefully that clears that up for you.
I wanted to take this moment real quick to say to our audience right now, if you have any questions for Lori, please post them in the chat. We really would love any of your questions about shamanism and about Lori's practice. Lori, please share with us more about some of the things. You've also written a book, and you also have a website that we posted down below that says you can contact her at akashicsoulmystic.com. And right. She also wrote a poem for us too as well. But let's start
for you, Lori.
Let's start with this question for Lori right here. From Tom, what are your feelings on plant medicines? What is the intended and most useful application of psychoactive chemicals in the healing process and for the shaman themselves, in your opinion?
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so I actually have very strong feelings about plant medicine. I actually believe that you need to pray with any material that you're going to use. It's just like you're making a cake, you only put so much baking soda in, or you're going to cake. It's that kind of a thing. Every person's body is very specific in what it needs. And so personally, when I do, a lot of times I go out on the land in Colorado. It's a very powerful place. There's a lot of sacred sites here. I go by myself. I don't take a bestie. I don't take a boyfriend or dog, a cat. I go out on the land shamanically, and I pray over rooms in my hands, just like I did at the beginning of the show, and I ask how many I actually need, because we might think like some of the famous people who are talking about, Terrence McKenna talked about the 5 gram thing. I get what he was saying, but as I've gotten older and more mature, I'm realizing, you kind of develop a relationship with these plants, and then you can trust them, and everybody's into microdosing right now, and sometimes that is enough. Sometimes you need more. It depends. Like right now, I'm going through my midlife crisis, and I had a thought today. I'm like, man, I should probably be doing 5 grams right now so I could get past all of the programs in my head. But yeah, I just believe strongly in the power of prayer. And then I just want to add, it's not really answer to your question, but I was having a conversation with someone I trained to do medicine wheel, which is a sacred ancient practice where you pray on the land for 7 days and you create a portal for healing for the community. I was talking to my soul brother about this, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to Kentucky to set up a medicine wheel, and it's at an EDM festival. And I'm like, oh man. So what in the native practice of the medicine wheel, we have 4 sacred medicines. We have sage, is also psychoactive. We have cedar, we have sweetgrass, and we have tobacco. And I guarantee you, if you go to like a very holy kind of ceremony where you're just getting staged and smudged with cedar, and all of that is quite powerful in itself. And hopefully in the future, I would like to put it out there to the viewers, like I'm looking for people who have private land, because this practice that I do of the medicine wheel is still kind of in danger. We need to have like some private land to really practice it in a safe way. So if anyone wants to talk about that later. And then I also I don't want to forget this because I think we skipped a whole portion of shamanism. We talked a lot about initiation and soul retrieval, but one of the things that really called me to shamanism is like I said, I've had past lives as an Incan shaman as well. And Mother Earth, Mother Earth, the waters of Mother Earth, the rivers of Mother Earth. Like I had an experience when I was about 9 years old, and God talked to me. It's like, there's going to be a time on the planet where things are going to get pretty intense, and I need your help. And so I answered that call very young. I had that clairaudient conversation with him. And when I stepped into the healer's path, I had already gone through a lot of like pitfalls. I went to film school. I wanted to do environmental films to save the world. And God was like, no, you got to learn how to be a healer and, go to Sedona and all these other things before you can make films. So now I'm at a point where I've kind of graduated from helping people on tables and working in spas, and I want to actually tell my story, and I want to show it through. And so I'm just going to briefly talk about my book. It's not quite published yet. But I'll just kind of share. This is my manuscript I've worked on for 7 years. 7 years of writing, and it's a memoir about how I took these calls of initiation, decided to go to Sedona, decided to leave my husband, and it's called Rainbow Warrior Healing on the Red Road. And what is the Red Road is a type of spirituality that the Native Americans practice, which is basically being right in your heart, like doing things in truth and integrity and answering the call in the alignment with God. So anything off of that is not the Red Road. And so all the decisions I make is usually a sacrificial type of thing. It's like not necessarily something my ego wants. It's something that I'm asked to do for the good of everyone. And I think that's what a true shaman and urban life should be doing right now.
I agree with that, absolutely. And I think that like all of us have that sacrifice that we have to constantly check ourselves on and remind ourselves that like this is part of the thing, part of that path is we're going to have these things that we can't have all the stuff like everybody else has. Like, it's just
right.
One of those things that can be hard for people to accept. And so like a lot of people ditch out on that path, because of that. Right. And that's okay. Like if you find yourself, like the thing is too, if you get that call and you get that inkling that you need to be doing something more than what you're doing and you feel driven, and then you decide to explore that and it's just not in, it just doesn't feel right to you, then like that's okay. I mean, that is okay. I think it's the effort that matters there, that you tried it. But you don't have to like do it. It's just that likely it'll be difficult if you're really meant to do it, it's going to be hard. But you can absolutely circumvent it because it is free will, right? We do have free will here. So there's that. But the majority of us will be, kind of reluctantly like drawn into it. And then we'll figure it out later though, after it's already kind of a thing. And we'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Why now? And then, that's why we don't have this or that. Specifically, like, I don't know, Stephanie, what do you think is like the biggest sacrifice part of it for those of us that are like rough initiation,
letting go, letting go, because ego wants us to hold on to everything, because ego wants to identify through things, right? Through validation of others. Ego wants to show off.
Right.
And so ego wants things, right? Yeah. Just things, collecting things.
Like the house, the white picket fence, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And so when we're on this path, as Lori can attest to, if we try to hold on to these things, they will be forced out of our hand because it is not aligned with our path, because we're meant to focus on the path, not on the things.
Right. That is so true. The more you're attached, the worse it is. Yes, absolutely.
Right. And I think Lori had something to say about that too, about something else too, previous. Go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, I want to go back to Tom's thing. I don't remember the whole question, but I wanted to speak to the healing power of mushrooms. I do talk about it quite a bit in my book because before I learned some higher level clairvoyant skills through meditation, the mushrooms helped me with what I call the Akashic record. It helped me access some past lives, block things. It also eats like dead material in the body and exposes it. So if you are suffering from generational curses or traumas or past wounding, I would recommend them. But I would put it in combination with being in a very place, being very grounded, maybe have a buddy say, I'm going to call you at 3 p.m. when I'm peaking or whatever, like just to always have a way of being very safe about things. I mean, I had the raging 20 or 20s timeline where, I took cocaine and I, tried weed, didn't like it, drank, did all of that stuff. I'm a Pisces, so I had to have my exploration, but
oh yeah.
I'm now at a point where it's like I'm actually not even able to eat the mushrooms sometimes. Like I just don't even need it because I've meditated so much that, and I've actually had elders in Sedona tell me not to take ayahuasca because that would inhibit my path. So, like I said, I think it's just person to person. It's very different. And
Yeah.
a lot of people have saved their marriages by going to retreats in Costa Rica. So, I mean, it has its place, but I think now it's so ramped up. Like, here, it's in your face, like it's free. And in Denver, we've decriminalized a certain amount of it. So
Right.
it's always all. And I think it's really important as an elder to educate people like, yeah, that's nice and everything, but there's these other things we could do first, you know, and then maybe
Right.
to that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And now we have some questions for you that I'd like to post too. But I agree with you. Mushrooms aided in my spiritual awakening for sure. It really helped me get rid of the idea that I'm separate from God, or that I'm separate from source, or that I'm separate from earth, right? From Gaia. It really just took away that veil of separation.
Yeah. It took away from me the inability to see ghosts, because now I can't not see them, and it's like, thanks, mushrooms. You know, yeah.
Okay, so here we go. What do you mean of ancient art, Serpentbird, is what a plethora of me just asked earlier.
In sacred sites, or what do you mean ancient art? I'm not sure what that means.
You were speaking, I believe, about you know what? A plethora of me. Okay. Do you know?
So if you go ahead after the show and look up, they call it medicine wheel, and you can find it on Google Images. I'm sorry, a diagram for you right now, but there's, so if you're familiar with the lodge, or like with teepees, right? The teepee is a representation of a womb. And so when you're going in the teepee, you actually have to walk in a special way, only clockwise, and then sit down in your place. And then when you leave, it's the same way, because you're creating a spiral of energy. You're building a vortex on the planet. So the teepee, according to some of the Canadian tribes, is very similar to the medicine wheel. It's an ancient, like I did say ancient art, but it's an ancient system of figuring out with stones what phase of life you're either going through now, or it helps you identify something you need to edit. And what I mean by that is, when you're in an ancient medicine wheel, there's usually 4 quadrants. There's a stone at the east, there's a stone at the south, there's a stone at the west, and a stone at the north. And what you do is you go around as you walk. It's like a walking meditation. It's not like a labyrinth. It's a special meditation where you go in, and if you stop on a certain quadrant or in between a quadrant, it'll tell you had a trauma at 6 years old, or 14, or, you know, late adult years in the 40s or whatever. But the medicine wheel is almost like a personal reflection calendar, if you will, of your whole life, but it also connects to past lives. So that's why I had to write a book about it, because it is a lot of art. And I was just really, really fortunate. Well, I had a Choctaw grandmother who was Native American, and she actually went through the boarding school. So she was converted to Christianity. So she decided, she was so smart that she decided that she was going to not only teach the medicine wheel, but she was also going to reach people through Christianity. So she used what she was forced to learn to reach people. And she was my first Native teacher, and taught us the medicine wheel to actually a bunch of witches in Ohio, where I'm from, with these huge quartz crystals inside of the bookstore. And unfortunately, she didn't teach us how to do it outdoors. But this was something that like was so potent and so life-changing her and what she taught, that I never stopped doing the work since I met her. I've been putting medicine wheels in Sedona. I've been doing group ceremonies. Now, Colorado has been really challenging. It's sort of one of those, like, if you're not in the club, we don't know who you are kind of things. And so I've had a hard time having group ceremonies here. But I'm being asked now that my book is pretty much done, start doing formal community work with this medicine.
That's so cool. That's interesting. It's very reminiscent of how we, if you do cast a circle in witchcraft, which I don't always do, but I'll be honest. But it's how you, the same way, you know, clockwise, not widdershins, like making sure that you keep that energy flowing in the same way in the different directions as well. So that's interesting that they line up. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool to know. I love seeing the parallels.
Yeah.
There's another question here for you. Lori, you mentioned about Inca heritage, perhaps the Pachamama?
Well, the Pachamama is actually Mother Earth. That's her name in indigenous cultures in the South. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of details about my South American past. I know I've been through Machu Picchu in Peru and Inca timeline, but very often my guides will tell me, okay, you need to be preparing, you need to learn Quechua. That's the language that they speak in Peru. But for financial reasons, I haven't been there, but Peru is on the top of my list, and second is Hawaii, because I was also a Hawaiian shaman. And so I actually had a really, really powerful experience on mushrooms here on the top of a mountain in Colorado. One day the crown of my head just like completely blasted open, and I started talking in Hawaiian. So it was more of like an ancient kind of Lemurian or like light language. But since that day, I actually, after I sobered up, I just kept talking and speaking it, because I'm like, there's something about this that I need to know. And I'm just kind of, sometimes I'm just like walking on the street and like, without people seeing me, I'm like talking this like weird language. But it's because I do want to connect to those places around the earth, and I'm really hoping once I find my book doula to like help me get my book on Amazon, that's what's going to launch me and be able to do ceremonies around the world, hopefully.
Lori, I know about that stuff. If you need help, I will be more than happy to help you. I know all about the publishing thing. I've gotten published, like, so
Okay,
it's a lot, but like, just message me and I'm more than happy to help you with that. I can send you to someone for press release and all that if you like. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good questions here too. Like, I did see this question about, do you need to be in person with your clients? Can you do it remotely, or does it need to be in person?
I mean, obviously it's nice to be in person, because I do have a license to touch and I have a lot of training, but I can do it through video as well.
Okay, that's good to know. And I think it's interesting that like your past lives have also revealed that you were in this role, because that is a common theme. It's like when we find out that we're doing this thing, it turns out that we can find in our family line other people that were doing this thing, and it's definitely old enough for us to have been possibly that person even in a past life in our own ancestral line, right? Because we do, like Stephanie, you were saying that there's a lot of evidence to support we inhabit our ancestral line going forward a lot. So yeah, like I have a great whatever 1658 burnt at the stake in Renfrew, Scotland, as a witch in the witch trials there. And I'm sure she probably wasn't even a witch, but like happened to her. So, you know, she just owned property and was a widow. So, you know, but like just to find out that stuff was pretty interesting. And I wasn't expecting that, nor was I expecting the Sami tribe to end up in my lineage either. And like it did. And I was like, I'd never even considered that I would have that kind of ancestry, but I do. So like, it's weird how that happens. It's like all the synchronicities that happen that kind of reinforce the idea that we're not just totally, you know,
right. If you were in denial, then let me tell you, all the things point to you being on this path. Right. Like, for instance, myself, I have been a witch in every life. And if I'm not a witch, then I'm a druid. And if I'm not a druid, I'm a voodoo practitioner, or I'm, like every kind of alchemist, sorceress, magic practitioner, healer type you could think of. And so it's just one of those things. I think that's a signature on our soul,
Yeah, here you look at this. This is about, I think this is about your book, right? Was that what you're talking about, Connie? I'm sorry. And hi, Connie. Thank you for coming in to the show. I don't think that you've been here before. Maybe this is your first time, and welcome. Sorry, we haven't been.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got it back from my editor in the UK, and unfortunately, there's still some editing to do on my own, but it's been read. The copy has been read through by someone, and she actually healed from it, so that was such a blessing.
That's great.
And have a photo for the cover and the jacket. It's just there's like a whole thing behind getting things correct and formatting, and I don't have any more finances for the other parts and pieces. So yeah, so anyone who wants to help, that would be great.
Formatting. Oh my gosh, that's like one of my favorite things to do.
Right.
I'm not joking. Like I do it as a teacher, and I do it just in my spare time for funsies. Like I have no spare time, but yeah.
Connie Huffa is saying to DM her Serpentbird because she said, been there, I self-publish for free. So she's saying to message her. Connie, if you could like leave your email maybe for Lori, that would be great. Or contact one of us and leave it for her. Here's another thing. Since we're going to the hour mark, what I thought we would do tonight is actually just continue with the topic and let Lori share her poem to kind of see us off after. But let's see. Let's talk about contacts real quick. You can contact Lori at akashicsoulmystic.com. And then also, Lori, where else can they contact you?
akashicsoulmystic@gmail.com.
Okay.
I'm writing it in right now.
Thank you.
And can I put my name in the chat? It's Lori Michelle Abel on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Anna will do that for you right now.
Okay.
And that goes in the chat for you. Oops, we just lost her.
Oh, where'd she go? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Akashic C right at the end is a C, not a K, right?
Right.
Picture. There you go.
Where did she go?
Come back.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, maybe
hopefully that was just a tech thing and she'll come right back. Yeah. We will hold on for her.
Yeah, but if you guys have a question in the meantime, you can.
Please post any of your questions for us.
Oh, and thank you guys for the birthday wishes. I appreciate it.
Yeah, 45. That was awesome. Yeah.
45. Actually, I'm super excited.
There we go. There she is. She's back now. There we go.
I was trying too hard to help.
So we got your information in the chat. And
I'm sorry, what was the name? I missed part of your full
Lori
name.
Michelle Abel.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, and that's on Facebook. And so guys, we will not be on tomorrow night since it is Anna's birthday weekend. So tonight is just this topic, and then when we see you next week, we'll continue into our psychic readings for everybody. So tonight we're gonna enjoy Lori's poem for us, because story is very important in shamanism, is it not, Lori?
It's very important. All right, so I'm going to read a poem called What is Sacred? What is sacred? Is it knowledge? Is it a degree? Is it a buffalo? Is it lightning? Is it a womb? It is a woman spelling her decree. It is the ones who remember the sacred tree. It must be wisdom from Akash, ether, and the space in between. Sacred code, sacred blood, trust and truth from the sacral fire. Code will be code, but divinity burns brighter. Sacred birth comes from the deepest, widest, visceral, primal scream. Womb of wisdom has to let go to be free. Sacred wisdom burns with passion to be held, gentler than you can hold the smallest of insects without crushing spirits. Sacred must be clean and pure. All the purification of fires burning through all the ego selves. Unlearning must be sacred, as patriarchy has destroyed what is pure. All the purification fires of, excuse me, by entangling words and structures, by piracy and quote ownership of Earth's resources. In the spoken word, is a voice sacred in its confident tune or in its tremble and traumatic releasing? Sacred voice emits truth that beautifies, since vibration creates an invisible landscape that every rock and tree who will outlive me will inherit. Sacred voice, channel the ancestral calling and sing it into the songs of earth. Song lines. Song lines my footsteps. I know the sacred when I hear the grandmothers and the grandfathers that I didn't even think cared for me or even knew me. The invitation to sit and remember with the chiefs and the warriors of the past. The invitation has come every pyramid, every portal on the earth. Yes, I have lived many lives. I know this is, and I've listened to the voices of the earth calling me, calling me, calling me. And I answer, I am the sacred voice of the thunder beings. Inside of every molecule of water, for all time, I am the sacred voice.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. So thank you, Lori, for being on with us tonight. And thank you so much for sharing with us about shamanism. I know we packed a lot in an hour, but you kept up with us and our chaos.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
One of the least chaotic episodes ever, actually.
Right. For sure.
Book doulas.
Right. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone who came on and participated with us.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week at this very same time, same destination. And if you'd like to get a hold of Lori and ask her anything else about shamanism, or if you're interested in her services, she is akashicsoulmystic.com or at gmail.com. So thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.